In this section, we're going to go through upper body pulling. And if you can recall from the theory presentation, we can either pull vertically or pull horizontally. Pulling is usually the nemesis of all athletes and clients. Pulling strength and developing pulling strength adequately is going to be supremely important, not only for performance in the weight room, but on the field. So in order for us to execute our pulling movements, we're going to do them with 2 arms, 1 arm, or alternating. By creating that pulling balance, we're going to be able to utilize pulling strength in a way that's going to maximize our performance and keep our upper bodies and our total body healthy. Okay, we've got an important point to make. Lat pull-downs are not a regression from pull-ups. It's not, if I can't do a pull-up, I'll do lat pull-downs. When we think about vertical pulling, lat pull-downs are going to be very important movements to incorporate in our programming. Why? They're going to allow us to add variation. If you're super strong, maybe you'll get away with the 1-arm pull-up. If you're super strong, I'd like to see you do alternating 1-arm pull-ups. But when we think about adding that variation, we're going to be able to do it with lat pull-downs. We're going to be able to build on symmetry and add a different kind of rotational moment when we do alternating or 1-arm lat pull-downs. Now, we're going to do these lat pull-downs in the rack using air. You can do lat pull-downs in any multi-arm setup that you have if you don't have access to something of this nature. Just find a way to be able to alternate and add a single arm moment to your lat pull-downs as opposed to doing lat pull-downs with a straight bar. JP is going to get set up in a half kneeling position. Just like all of our half kneeling positions, we want to make sure that our alignment is correct. So again, our key landmarks that we're looking for are going to be ears, shoulders, hips, and knees in a straight line in our 90-90 position. Front leg, ankle directly underneath the knee, making sure that we've got our setup. Starting in this position, when he gets down to his low position is where we're going to start. In this position, we want to make sure that, again, he's not dominating with the upper traps and that the motion is executed from the scaps. He's going to hold this bottom position, putting that lat under a bit more time under tension, a bit higher level of activation. In order to execute this movement, he'll reach with 1 arm to have that either be the 1-arm reach or alternating if he switches arms. Key point, again, is making sure that we have a clean range of motion. He's going to reach as far up as he can through his entire range of motion, then again, clean on the way back down, making sure that we initiate with the scap and not with the upper trap. This is the alternating 1-arm, half kneeling lat pull down. Okay, let's be honest. Pull-ups are probably your nemesis. Pull-ups are like vegetables, though. You probably started off hating them, you grow to like them, but you can't deny they're good for you. They're going to be good for overall strength and overall health. So we want to make sure that we have our pull-ups in our programming. Pull-ups are going to be essential for overall total body strength and overall total body health. We can do pull-ups in a number of different ways. We can have a pronated grip, supinated grip, or we can go neutral. Pull-ups are always going to be difficult for people to do, especially when they just start doing them. What we're going to do is we're going to utilize our 3-position isometric hold while we do a neutral grip pull-up. The neutral grip is going to be a comfortable position, safe on the shoulders. It's also going to be in the same plane that we do our overhead pressing so that we're working in the same planes of motion. That neutral grip pull-up, by utilizing that isometric hold, is also going to help us develop strength. When we're working on isometric strength, the benefit is that the strength that we develop in one position is actually going to carry over 20 degrees at that joint angle. This way, we can round out the strength in the entire range of motion without actually having to take the person through the entire range of motion. We ultimately want to get them to a point where they can do this dynamically, where we can start packing the reps in, but until they get there, if they're not there to begin with, isos are going to be a great place to start. Isometric 3-position point holds in the pull-up position is what we're going to do. A couple other things that we want to focus on. We understand that the lat is one of the longest muscles in the body. We understand that it's going to attach to the top part of the pelvis, so what happens at the hip is going to be very, very important on its effect in the pull-up. In order to ensure success, to get the pillar engaged and to also put the lat on stretch, we're going to add a blue pad. The blue pad is going to be held between JP's knees as he does this pull-up for adduction, and then also we're going to flex the hip so that we put that lat on stretch. This way, it's going to be a bit more difficult to execute, but it's ultimately going to set him up for success. So now what we're going to do is a 3-position pull-up iso hold. We're going to add a blue pad with hip flexion and adduction. So as JP gets set up, first thing he's going to do, grab that pad, put it between the knees, as he gets set up on the bench. When he pulls up, now what are the key things that we're looking for? First thing we want to make sure that he does is that he drives those elbows down. By driving those elbows down, we understand that we have his scaps in the right position, and he's not using his upper traps to do this position. As he moves down to his 90-90 position, he's going to hold here, and again, we want to make sure that he's not losing it at the top part of his shoulders where his traps are starting to take over. We want to make sure that he's in a good position the whole way through. As he lowers down to his bottom position, he's going to continue to hold, and then he can step on the bench and reset. As far as the amount of time holding at each position, 5 seconds is a good start. We want to work our way up to 10 seconds, and if you're feeling really frisky, we can move to 15 seconds. 10 seconds is a good place to be, though, because now we can start to add external load. If you want to put on a weight vest, if you want to put a dumbbell between the feet, if you want to add chains around your shoulders, anything that you can utilize to add an external weight to these movements is going to be very, very good without necessarily having to increase the amount of time that you're in that position. Key point, not having the shoulders dominate in terms of the upper traps doing the work, or having there being asymmetries. You may have one shoulder hike while the other shoulder is down. We want to make sure that this is a symmetrical movement. So making sure that the elbows are driving down, the scaps are in a strong position, and that the shoulders are relaxed in terms of the upper traps not taking over and being dominant are some of the key things that we're definitely going to want to focus on while we're in those top positions, and then throughout the entire range of motion. At no point in time should he ever lose that position, making sure that we're in the best possible position we can be in. As a progression now, we can move past the iso holds and then start moving dynamically. The progression doesn't mean that we lose the blue pad. Again, we want to set him up for success. So he'll still have that blue pad between his knees, except now, again, making sure that the shoulders are in the correct positions to be in, elbows are driving down. JP will now go through a couple of dynamic reps or full pull-up movements while he keeps his hips in flexion, squeezing that blue pad, making sure that his shoulders are in the position that we want them to be in throughout the entire movement. It's time to row. When we think about horizontal pulling for the upper body, the row is going to be the main movement that we utilize. There are a number of different ways you can row. You can row with dumbbells, you can row with a straight bar, or you can use the TRX. We're going to use the TRX in this particular instance because it's going to be really good to see how we can incorporate the entire body in this rowing movement. Setting up on the TRX in terms of difficulty is going to depend on what angle you're at. As you can see here with JP, we've got a bar set up so that he can get his body in about a 45-degree angle. If you want to increase the difficulty, we could take the bar away, and the more parallel he gets to the floor, the more difficult it's going to be to execute this row. Key points. Again, where's the rowing action coming from? Making sure that we're not utilizing the upper traps and taking these out of the equation is going to be really important. So the direct action that we're looking for is where the elbows are. Think about the elbow being the main initiator when we're rowing to engage the lat, as opposed to doing a bicep curl, pulling with your hands, and using your upper traps to help with your movement. As JP gets set up, we want to make sure that he's in that straight plumb line that we've been using with everything that we've done. So as he's sitting down on the ground, he's going to extend those hips so we have a nice straight line from shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle. And again, we're going to have him dorsiflex working on that ankle mobility throughout this movement. Here he's got a nice straight grip, and as he pulls himself to his top position, again, he'll rotate so that his palms are facing each other. Elbows will be driving back the entire time, keeping his body in a nice straight line as he executes this row. This is going to be an extremely powerful movement that he's going to do that's going to help not only with shoulder health, especially to account for a lot of the pressing work that people usually do. This TRX row is a great movement that we can incorporate in our overall program. In this series, we're going to go through upper body horizontal pulling. The main movement that we're going to do is a row, a one arm, one leg row. We can execute this row in two different ways, ipsilaterally or contralaterally. An ipsilateral movement, again, is going to be where the weight is also going to be on the same side as the support leg. To execute this movement, we're essentially going to get into our single leg RDL position. Once we get into that position, we'll start to know what the key things we want to look for are. Just like in our inverted hamstring and our single leg RDL, we want to make sure that there is a straight line from head to heel. We want to see that that back leg is extended the entire time, and the support leg has a slight bend in the knee. In getting set up, we're going to utilize a bench. We're going to reach that arm for that bench, but we're not going to put pressure into that bench. Again, we're just going to use it as a reference point. When we're actually executing the row, one of the common things that we see is that it's executed with the upper trap and that it's pulled with the bicep. We want to reverse that. We want to make sure that we're actually executing with the lower trap and that we're utilizing the elbow as our reference point to execute the pull. This should be done in one clean movement. We don't want to separate the two movements, so we're not going to set and then row. We're going to make sure that it's done in a fluid action. JP will now first get set up in his single leg position, reaching for that bench, extending long through his back leg. Then he'll grab the dumbbell with his left arm and start to execute that row. As we can see as he does this movement, first it's very, very clean, putting the two movements together by setting the shoulder and then driving the elbow back towards his hip to make sure that we're utilizing the lower trap and the lat. We can see here that he's not utilizing his upper trap to do this movement. If we want to progress this movement, we'll do what we call a contralateral row. In a contralateral position, the dumbbell is now going to be in the opposite arm. So the resistance is going to create a rotational movement that we have to account for as we execute this movement. Now JP is going to make sure, or has to account for, stabilizing the torso while he does this row because the dumbbell is in the opposite hand. JP will now do a contralateral one arm, one leg dumbbell row. Nothing changes. Back leg is completely extended. Those ASIS, those headlights pointing straight towards the ground, making sure that his hips are square, initiating with the lower trap, driving the elbow back towards his hip, executing the one arm, one leg dumbbell row.